Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SB Reacts where today we got ourselves a track from an act named Glas titled Easily, and if we switch over to here we got ourselves a track on Music Bee. This is an unreleased demo as I understand it. They're still working on the mixing and mastering. This is pre-release, so just bearing that in mind. We're going to listen through this track from start till finish and we're going to hear what we think. Let's do it, let's go. That's a nice brass line in the background.
Easily to say I love you be the least for me to do. Somehow we talk through shit so easily. Playing these heartstrings we sit and learn each other's tones. We grow so easily. Yeah, to say I love you be the least for me to do. Somehow we talk through shit so easily.
Great call response of the brass.
Maybe it's too good to be true. Baby, this just honeymoon. Are we waiting on time? In the dark is you and I still so new. Yeah, I'm feeling it. Hey, look, that's just real. There's some questions you can't answer, but just still ask. Just saying how it feels instead of holding back, you know? I got you. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Hey, right here. Her body language is so damn patient and so low maintenance. My eyes gone Asian when concentrating on all she's saying. Our conversations ping pong like I'm so done tiptoeing, open up like flip phones. We talk like old souls. I like your ringtones, picking up those low notes. So easily
Interesting mixture of
to
vocal
say
chops
I
with
love you be the least for me to do. Somehow we talk through shit so easily. Playing these heartstrings we sit and learn each other's tunes. We grew so easily. Yeah, to say I love you be the least for me to do. Somehow we talk through shit so easily. Honestly took more than a piece of me, but gave me so much peace of mind. Way you speak is so divine. You and I lose track of time. Everything feels so aligned without even like trying. Without even trying. Girl, you sound like bossa nova. I love when I have you over. Told me no ashwagandha, long as I can hold you. Wish it lasted longer and I'd pulled you closer. Fact of matter, I just really hope you know that I got your back for real. I'm practically your chiropractic, always trying to get that smile cracking. You're perfectly pearly white, just so attractive. Plus the Portuguese princess just had the cutest little accent. Maybe keep on going, I'll just do some ad-libs, write my poems. I don't know, maybe some rap shit, yeah. Cause you got me flowing with all of this passion. Blown in the wind of your words, you've been blowing my mind so damn.
No, I like that. I think that's well done. Shaker in the background as a sub layer rhythm wise. Okay, I do think there's a lot to appreciate in this track. We're going to talk about it more in the conclusion. Because welcome to the conclusion, my review of this track from an act named Glas titled Easily. In this section, I'm going to be providing an overall song analysis of everything from lyrics and vocals all the way through to production, as well as any applicable constructive critique, and finally my general final thoughts from a listener's perspective. But first of all, what do we think this track is about? I think this track is about the various ways that this person is infatuated with the one they love, or the one that at least they want to get with. They talk about the chiropractor line. There's some really interesting, effective wordplay there. I like the sense of humor behind it, but also the tenderness and how vulnerable some other parts are as well. We show a range of expression as a vocalist, which I think is both applicable, understandable, and appreciable. It's just nice to explore different ways of discussing similar talking points with different mannerisms, especially in a track that's 3.5 minutes long. And even though I do quite like the instrumental parts, I like the theme there, what's going on with the different additions and layers and stuff. It just, you need to have variety on the mic in order to really continue to retain attention, especially because around that midpoint, even though I was enjoying the slight adjustments that we had to the sung vocals, it was like, okay, how are we going to switch things up for that part at the end? I think vocally, we were very comfortable in Hen's chest voice, exhibited really solid vocal technique there. We hit the notes cleanly for the most part. There's a bit of vibrato occasionally, some interesting legato tails there. I liked the rapping and the way the words came through easily and how we were sort of very comfortable exploring not only similar rhythmic cadences, but also occasionally switching things up. We explored the harmonies with the extensions on the guitars neatly without ever sort of feeling like we were stumbling over it. It just seemed very elegant in its approach and very sort of like calm and suave there. You could almost imagine them. It's like a nighttime conversation that they're having between people, you know. The rap section is a bit more playful, but the song parts are more sort of like a kind of fluffy, honest feelings, if that makes sense. It's just, yeah, I think vocals being the main focal point in this track made a lot of sense there. There's a lot to appreciate in terms of, for example, the brass parts, which had some really tenacious parts. There's some really quick, fluttery bits, which I'll talk about in a moment, which I kind of appreciated there. Made it sound a bit poignant. But ultimately, I think the vocals were well done here. There's nothing I personally feel would need to be changed in regard to that. There were also those kind of vocal chops we had in certain parts, as well as sort of ad-libbed sections as well. It did occasionally start to become very busy, but I don't think it ever overshadowed the piece or overdid its course. I think ultimately we did find balance there, which was really good. I just think, again, it's just adding different vocal layers like chops and effects on the sides of the stereo field. It's just a common sort of like sensible thing to do. They were call and response as well, our own vocal takes from other vocal lines, you know, it's all good. And so bearing in mind that I think the lyrics and vocals worked well with each other, we then just need to talk at the literal rest of the song. I mean, at 3.5 minutes, as I mentioned before, this track has a variety of different verses, choruses, both sung and rapped there. And I think that we came through the track really neatly. There were no sort of awkward transitions or parts where it didn't make sense from like a performative perspective. We had a similar chord progression and bass lines, I understand it, for the vast majority of the piece there, but it's the way that we adjusted things in terms of the instrumental layers, adding the drums and the double bass, I think around the halfway point, which is really neat. That brass being a nice foil in the upper register to those nylon string classical guitar parts there, the flamenco feel to them with those really sleepy sounding extended chords was just a fantastic choice there. I like the fact that we had that brass as an alt lead. I'm wondering if that was like a sample or something we found there, because it was repeated throughout the piece there. But either way, the flair with that was awesome, and I just feel the track would have been a bit empty sounding without it. There was this kind of like a shaker in the background as well, which is a subtle 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and we were in halftime for most of this track there, which added kind of a slow dancey kind of feel to the piece there in straight 4/4. I don't mind that. The on-beat and syncopated fingerstyle guitar parts there added a bit of rhythmic flair, as well as a decoration within the overall harmony. And with any sort of bass lines either decorating the roots or the fifths, you know, I think ultimately it was just the throatiness of the tone there that just added an extra interesting timbre to the piece. To be fair, I've actually just had a double check through the double bass. It was a bit more active than just the first and fifths, wasn't it? It did bomb, bomb, bomb. No, it was okay, so never mind. And I think I actually do appreciate that more, primarily because there was space within the composition in order to be able to do that. They not only understood that there was space, but knew how to implement those things. And there was a really interesting room sound to the recording. I could hear that maybe the guitar was mic'd, that the double bass was mic'd, that the vocals were mic'd using similar microphones, if not mistaken. I think in general, the recording quality of that is good. I think having a room sound to it is honestly more of a compliment nowadays, primarily because it can be just so easy to either use samples or simply sort of like, you know, and not that it's a detriment or a bad thing, but you can, there are other ways to record these things. I just appreciate when people take the time to actually, you know, put a mic on something and try and get a good tone out of the place they're in. Kind of adds a sense of cohesion to the arrangement as a whole, the performance, the sound of it. I think, to be fair, we're also using an 808 if I'm not mistaken there, which was kind of sick as well, in addition to the double bass. I haven't really heard that before, but it was just nice to combine to me some sort of like more modern influences with the kind of like the slow jazz, with the kind of not bossa nova groove. It's like a specific type of groove rhythm from that part there. But yeah, I can't remember the name off the top of my head. I'm going to have to review those later too. I'm going to like review my sort of like Latin rhythms. And I'm going to go with bossa nova. I could be wrong. Feel free to let me know off I am. I do appreciate the use of, on the drum kit, not only just keeping a minimalist approach with the kicks, but also using the rims, not going for a full snare sound. I just feel like having a snare tone on this track would have been too aggressive. Again, we have a lot of really calm, chill sounding elements, and having a full-bodied snare in addition to that kind of kick would just, it's a kind of nice kind of push-pull between the two there, you know, having a bit of oomph with the kick there simply to create that pulse, that positional kind of thing, but then kind of like, it's just a nice element. Then we have the shakers as well to sort of keep things moving forward anyways. There are also additional vocal layers, like we double track certain vocal parts for emphasis there, and we had the vocals were a fantastic focal point. It was nice to have the sub brass with the sub lead with the brass, should I say. And yeah, honestly, I don't really think we needed more than that compositionally within this piece. You could have potentially have had an extended brass solo, like a trumpet solo or something like that, but you don't need to. It's okay. You know, you could have had more range with that, I suppose, as a sub lead, but it's fine as it is. I don't think you could have added more instruments there in order to improve it. I think thematically there, the sevenths that we used within the chord progressions, as well as any sort of like, I don't think we used any modulation. I think things were typically diatonic within that major and minor, again with the extensions. It's just, it adds nuance, emotional nuance to it. It's not just a kind of cheesy, happy or sad. It adds a kind of stylish sophistication to it. Like it's more than just puppy love, or it's more than just a sort of a basic kind of attraction to this person. There's more to it than that. Maybe there's also a sexiness to it, to be fair. You know, two things can be true, but either way, I think that if we'd gone with major or minor triads and been more sort of blunt with our coloration choices there, it would have been a little bit less mature sounding. Were we even using cajon for the percussion? Listening back to it, we might have been using a cajon, I'm not sure. That would be stylistically appropriate for this kind of music. So yeah, maybe we were using a cajon. That's maybe the kind of tapping of the fingers is what we had there. I could be wrong. But either way, I think the studio recording, mixing, and mastering, given that this is a work in progress with the mixing and mastering, I'm fairly happy with the take. I think there are some vocal parts which are louder than others, so it's maybe just double checking how things sound in mono so that we can hear how the different vocal layers kind of coexist within one another. But I think we're identifying or covering the fundamentals in regard to how the vocals are compressed and EQ'd and stuff like that, which is good. And I feel like we'll just continue to do a couple more takes, you know, do the car test, do the cell phone test, etc. And we'll have the mix sorted at that point. I think, you know, there's a little bit of room sound in some of the recordings, but like things sound well meshed, you know, things sound reasonably glued. I can't really hear any resonant frequencies in here. And maybe I'm being a little bit more gentle, primarily because I can hear there are some more sort of acoustic room elements within the pit track that I think if you were to over sterilize with notch EQing, it might kill the quote unquote vibe of the piece. Maybe you want it to be like a little bit more kind of rustic, but nonetheless, I think generally things are well spread out around the frequency spectrum and stereo field. I like the vocal takes on the side and everything like that. The music surrounds you in the headphones. There is enough dynamic range with it. I like when the track starts to go out and you just have the guitar and it just kind of feels like things are simmering down a little bit. I dig that. It's just very sensible. And I do think as well, if you'd overcompress the vocals to have them the same loudness, you wouldn't have gotten some of those quieter talking points. So I assume that a lot of it's deliberate. Nice and loud, bit of pumping, bus compression, limiting sound. No real complaints on my part there. In terms of applicable constructive critique, I don't really... I think in isolation, my final thoughts from a journalist's perspective, it's literally just we could have potentially have had a sub lead at the end with the trumpet there. And just to be clear, when I talk about like an alt lead for the brass, I mean like a specific sort of sub leady kind of solo thing that could have more to do with some of the notes that the vocalist is singing rather than like separate isolated concepts that it kind of loops, you know, something a bit more sort of directed towards deliberately but propping up the vocalist as things all come together near the end. That's just it. But aside from that, it's very good. For like, in terms of like potential or where we go further from this, it'd be interesting to hear if we make more tracks like this. How do we establish ourselves and offer a sense of differentiation from a lot of the other musicians that are making tracks like this? I think in isolation though, as a functional concept, I think at the very least it could be a fitting tribute to whoever the song was about. And I feel like, again, as they continue to explore new palettes and expand their horizons, I think they've got, again, the fundamentals, the foundations covered. It's just gonna, again, if there was anything that was on my mind about what we could sort of improve it's just, I'd have to listen to the final mix and master to sort of really ascertain how that works. But I think at the moment, if we were to squeeze it too much with the compression, or maybe kill the dynamic range, and it's just about kind of double checking some of like the mic takes just to make sure that we don't have anything going on there from the room itself. But again, with the way that we're hearing it so far, I think we're on the right track. So thank you for watching my review of this track from an X-Name Glas titled Easily. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go show them some love via their various social medias, and I'm sure this will be on all digital stream platforms at some point. And stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever thought of crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next SP Reacts. Spiderhands out.